Hi everyone, and welcome to a slightly remixed edition of the Influencer Marketing News from Analytica. This month we've decided to shake things up a bit, so I am not joined by my usual co-host, and I am instead bringing you someone each month. Tom or I will be bringing you someone from across the Analytica team. This week I am joined by our head of customer success in the US, Jordan. Say
Hello.
hi to everyone.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here.
So we are going to talk through all of our top stories from across the world of sort of social media and influencer. And to begin with, Jordan, you have a story about Twitter looking at how they're going to start getting user input on content moderation.
Yes, so very similar to how Reddit have the upvotes and downvotes. Twitter are trialing this with a couple of their iOS users at the moment to have upvotes and downvotes on their tweets, which is really interesting, I think. We're not entirely sure how this is going to look and what it means for feeding information into other users that are using Twitter, but it looks like they're going to open this up to the world of tweeters, and people will be able to upvote and downvote, which is, I think, very interesting space to go into. I know that they've recently said that they're going to also add in the edit button as well. So you've got a time limit to edit your tweets, and now people can downvote them if they don't love them and upvote them if they do. A few people have already seen it on their feeds and have reacted to it. So that's been an interesting story to look out for. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Jack, on whether we should have upvotes and downvotes on Twitter?
I mean, as always, as you know from working with me, I have lots of opinions at all times. I mean, they've kind of launched this community moderation, I think last year, Birdwatch, and so my understanding of the feature and how they're thinking about it is almost that it's more about how how do you sort of provide feedback on whether someone is engaging properly almost in the conversation. I think ultimately, as lots of Reddit users will attest, that kind of thing is really open to misuse and kind of bad faith use of it. And it's extremely easy for particularly influential users on Twitter to kind of bring down a storm of that kind of thing on someone they don't like. So there's risk to that, as always. I guess Twitter's taken a lot of heat over the years over content moderation practices. I think often from people who maybe don't understand the ins and outs of how you develop features and try and test ways to do it. So I think at times it's been a little unfair. And in the last year or so, I would say they've kind of managed to take the heat off themselves. So it's good to see them testing stuff. Anything that I think just helps introduce a little bit of thoughtfulness into the conversation and just ensure we're not exercising our kind of most instinctive reactions at times, and that there's some sort of way for that to be fed into the conversation for kind of feedback on what is and isn't a constructive response. If someone's being really annoying in your replies, having some way to do something about it that's a bit less confrontational than telling them to go away or block them is maybe could end up being a sort of useful data source to draw on for content moderation.
That's true. I mean, what does that mean for the like button though? Is there a use for the like button if you've got up and down votes on a tweet?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll break them out separately, if they'll end up integrating the two. Because my understanding was that it wasn't a replacement, but then that's you're not wrong. That's a lot of buttons to have on the tweet in the on your phone. I already pressed the wrong thing, plenty on my phone.
Yeah, you retweet instead of like, and now you've got an up or down vote.
Absolutely mortifying if you get the imagine downvoting your boss's tweets. Horrifying.
Well, it's only open to a couple of people on iOS at the moment. So I know from your point of view as an Android user, there's not much you can do. I'm
proud of it, and I'm not ashamed.
You shouldn't be.
So keeping the topic on Twitter, so that's a feature that's making its way out the door. Something that is kind of meeting an early grave after just 8 months. Live is the fleets function. So probably around the start of the year, Tom and I were it felt like every week we were talking about, and it had almost sort of become a meme that every single platform was trying to release ephemeral content. This idea of kind of disappearing content so that people could post something a bit more spontaneous, a bit more kind of lighthearted and throwaway, building on the kind of runaway success of Snapchat and then Instagram's successful subsuming of that. Again, from a product perspective, I quite like to see that they've just gone, no one's using this, get rid of it. We tried, it didn't work. I personally was never that convinced, but there must have been something in the user research that made them think, oh, maybe this would encourage a bit more conversation. It's known that lots of social platforms have that issue. I don't know, did you ever use a fleet at any point?
I personally didn't, but I have seen some successes with a few of my clients where they have posted on the fleets. And I think in terms of measurement, it worked really well. So you could see how many people actually viewed the fleet or story, which was nice to take back to a business and say, we've had 8,000 people actually view this story. Whereas impressions as a metric on Twitter, sometimes I struggle with that one, because you're saying the impressions are whoever's tweeted out times their followers. So if they've got 1 million followers, you're saying 1 million impressions on that tweet, which I don't think is a realistic number to be giving a brand or even, an influencer themselves. So I think that on the measurement side, it worked quite nicely. But
yeah, for sure, it's intentional, isn't it? Like, you have to open up the fleets. I mean, you really had to know where it was to look at it. So there's something to that it's outside of the main workflow. Whereas you're right, normal impressions data can sometimes, social networks will either guard closely or have a very loose definition of kind of what counts as an impression. A third of a second pausing over something doesn't mean I stopped and read it properly. But
yeah,
as far as some poor marketer's concerned, maybe that is being served to them as an impression. So yeah, good that
definitely.
they tried, good that they knew when to give up. So as fleets and sort of ephemeral content dies, you have a story about LinkedIn doubling down on their version, which is less imaginatively just called stories.
Yes, I mean, to be completely honest, I didn't realize Twitter fleets were called fleets until they decided to sunset it. So LinkedIn stories, which I'm sure most people are aware of, they have recently partnered with Canva, who are a presenting software. So you are now able to upload stories on LinkedIn using the Canva software, so you can create some really nice looking stories for a brand. And I think this is going to be a game changer, really. I think that a lot of brands will start using it. I think it's going to be an easy way to create good looking content. And I personally use Canva, and it's very user friendly. So I'm looking forward to seeing how marketing strategies are changing in the coming months to use this for LinkedIn and their stories.
Yeah, I mean, Canva is it really feels, and it's anecdotal, but it feels really true. Like, any social media person I know will rave about it, and it's the dream for the short on time social media marketer. Needs to publish the same thing to all their platforms. You don't have 2 days of designer time to use. You just need to quickly kind of put something together. It helps you with all the templates. I think, adding LinkedIn makes complete sense. I agree with you. It's going to be, I would expect that to be a step change. I guess we'll see what happens with uptake of that. You generally, I mean, all platforms are kind of flaky on user numbers, and they don't like to give it. And even when they're sort of giving their quarterly results to shareholders, they can sometimes be a bit flaky about it. So it'll be interesting to see whether they say anything or whether kind of anecdotally it feels like people are using. But anyone using Canva, knowing that you've just got LinkedIn available now, as well as a publishing platform, is really exciting, I think.
And also from a marketing point of view, you don't always have the resource to design everything. So, and also marketers aren't designers themselves, or at least a lot that we work with. So the fact that they are able to push out content, good looking content on a more on demand basis, I don't see that being a negative at all.
Yeah, I feel like we use the phrase at Analytica, a social card with with the influencer's headshot and your quote in your company colors. We use that phrase multiple times a week, knowing that you can push that out from Canva straight to your channels is, yeah, absolute gold dust. So my final story is around online presenting setups. This sort of caught my eye in the feed when I was sort of researching for this month's episode. There's a professor of economics, I think, called Emily Nix at USC in America, who has kind of figured out how to rig up a light board, is what it's called, and it's basically like a sort of transparent whiteboard. She can shine the camera through it, and she's able to kind of give her lecture and have the slides up at the same time, so that it's like she's writing on the whiteboard while she's doing lectures over Zoom or Teams or other conferencing softwares are available, especially the ones made by our clients. I think that the interesting thing about this for me is whether in the sort of influencer space, and particularly where people who've made for whom event speaking is kind of their bread and butter, I sort of wonder whether this type of thing is what we're going to see increasingly emerge as a differentiator. It's really great to be a very personable and energetic speaker in the room, but I wonder if the industry will resettle back to that model ever, or whether, or if it takes another 2-3 years before we're really back. Will it be worth investing in this kind of setup and really having it as a differentiator? Because I think, for this professor, it's obviously it's raised her profile. It's a CV talking point forever, really, that she's pioneered this. I don't know. Have you seen any kind of exciting at-home setups, or do you think from what you've seen people need to up their game a bit?
I haven't. There's nothing that comes to mind that has been super exciting that's worth talking about. But I really think working with events at the moment, and a lot of them wanting to go back in person, is just not possible. And I don't think it's going to be possible really for a good couple of years. And I think you're missing out on a huge audience by not having anyone virtually there. So I think this definitely helps with more of the hybrid events that we're going to be seeing in the future. So it may be that people are there in person, but you also have it record. You have a live setting and it's being recorded, and everything sort of works quite nicely, having a really good setup to show audiences that are online, people that aren't able to travel at the moment. I mean, borders are still closed. I don't think many people are even allowed into the US. So I think for now, I think that would work really well, but it'd be interesting to see, this time next year if this is still the case.
Yeah, because I think from a lot of brands' perspective, it's obviously more wallet friendly not to fly someone out,
and environmentally friendly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just as importantly, and from an influencer perspective, the range of things you become available for, if you don't want to spend 15 weeks of the year away from your family traveling on business, it's quite nice if that if travel remains something that you get to do for leisure. And obviously we all know that face-to-face relationships are valuable, but I definitely think there's kind of something in it. So one to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
I'll share the link. I encourage everyone to watch the video because it's really ingenious what she's done. She kind of said she basically went down to the hardware store, few phone calls with kind of family to get it figured out, and she's got a really kind of a really clever solution to the kind of issue of being able to write on the whiteboard. So that's it for the July edition of the Influential Times. We will be back next month. It will be Tom and another very special guest from somewhere across the Analytica business, so that the lovely folks out there get to meet the rest of the team. But for now, thank you to Jordan.
Thank you. I feel very privileged to be your first guest.
No, absolutely. There's no one else I would rather have. And for everyone at home, sign up to the newsletter. There will be a 5th story, and of course all of the links to the ones that we have talked about here. And other than that, I will see all of you in a couple of months.
Thank you.